I was confused for the longest time.
Oh,
if that was like the same.
For the longest. I can't help myself.
Dude, we gotta just throw in like pointless Billy Joel references like throughout the whole episode.
They all are pointless, but yeah, let's go for it. I don't know. You may be right.
That's true. So
I may be crazy.
citizens of Earth, welcome to Accelerativ Thrust. I'm Dan.
And I'm Erik.
And today we're going to talk about records that are not, well, we are going to talk about one record that is local, but man, it's been a long time since we've talked about music that is, more national or, that's not from Iowa, which is great, which is awesome, because what that's telling us is that hey, there's a lot of great music coming out of not just Iowa, but the Midwest in general.
There is.
But it's also nice to, talk about some records that have been coming out from bigger bands, if you will, or, or
at least just further away.
Or just further away. Exactly. And I'll tell you what, there's been some, so far, there's been some really good stuff coming out this year or just within the past year. And so, it's been a while since we've had an episode like this. So I'm pretty excited. This is what we call our normal episodes.
Regular episode.
Our regular episode.
This is the regular show.
Yeah, the regular show. Oh, man, I love regular. Have you ever watched a regular show before, Erik?
I haven't watched any of the good cartoons like that people talk about.
Man, regular
like Adventure Time and Regular Show. And
regular show's so funny. It's about this blue jay and this raccoon, and their names are Mordecai and Rigby. The entire freaking show is just hilarious. It's just these two stoner animals that live in their own world and never work and never do anything productive, and they destroy everyone's life. But for some reason, they all love everyone whose lives they destroy. All love them in the end.
Wow. So it's like Accelerativ Thrust.
Yeah, close to it.
Hey, so I have some questions about this though. So it's a blue jay,
right? Like
the song Blue Jay Way,
right?
And it's a raccoon, like the song Rocky Raccoon.
Yeah.
And one of them's named Rigby, like Eleanor Rigby. How many Beatles references are in this show? Just really your introduction had 3, and then maybe Mordecai, but that might be a Wes Anderson.
I'm sure that's probably the case. I do know that there was an episode with a rap battle where Tyler, the Creator, was one of the guests.
Oh, and he was in the Beatles, and so that makes sense.
Tyler was like the 7th Beatle or something?
Yeah, right behind Stu and Brian. They went Stu, Brian, Tyler.
Yep, all of them.
George. And, actually, George, Stu, Brian, Tyler.
And Tyler did a lot of creating. That's why he created stuff. So that's why they called him the Creator.
It makes perfect sense.
There was also
one of those ray gun shirts for a second, where it just has a bunch of names.
Is that what those ray gun shirts are a bunch of names?
It'll just be a list of people that are related somehow. I guess it could be rappers from the 90s or something. It would just say Biggie and Pac and Dre and Cube.
Oh, okay.
Or something like that, but it could be about anything. In this case, it's all the members of the Beatles that weren't really members, including Tyler, the Creator. Yeah. Because that makes perfect sense.
Makes 100%.
Wow.
So, that's interesting that you mentioned the 90s. There's something that I want to talk about here that could be related to the 90s.
Okay.
It's dealing with technology. Have you heard about this situation?
Yeah.
Technology.
I heard about it.
Have you heard about this situation with the Pixies going on. Where is my mind?
I saw the headline.
Yeah, okay. So it seems that the Where Is My Mind, it's a glitch, apparently. Google rolled out a feature where users could say stop or snooze rather than hey Google to deliver a command concerning setting an alarm through Google Assistant. Now, this is the part that worries me. They could be used on Google's phone starting with the Pixel 6, according to the Android police. So there's Android police. That's concerning.
Yeah. I like it.
So Android police. Yeah. And this is real life too, nonetheless. But anyway, some users found that their alarms were not going off. So Redditors, who also are researchers apparently, revealed why. They had used the Pixies' Where Is My Mind from their Spotify playlist as a shuffled music alarm, and that caused the alarm clocks to turn off.
Because he says stop. I get it.
Because he says stop, and it apparently was enough to trigger it. But anyway, what's interesting is it's the only song that they found that had the word stop that triggered the command. They used a bunch of other songs, and none of them did. Like MC Hammer's You Can't Touch This. Stop. Hammer Time.
Oh, sure.
Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby. Stop. Collaborate and listen. Jane's Addiction. Stop. That's good.
Yeah.
What does he even say stop in the song? I don't like.
Yeah, he says
stop.
It's lit to pop.
Oh yeah, he does.
Ain't
Okay,
nobody gonna stop. No one. No way. Stop. Now here we go.
The Hollies. Stop.
Oh.
The Supreme. Stop in the Name of Love. And Queen's Don't Stop Me Now.
Wow. What about Don't Stop Believing?
Don't Stop Believing. I was just thinking of other songs that have the word stop in them, and I can't think of any right off the bat.
Running.
Stop dragging my heart around.
Yeah, that's it. Heart around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So apparently, Where Is My Mind is
Stevie Nicks. Yeah. And
yes. Uh-oh. Is there an Easter egg in this episode?
Not anymore.
Anyway, but check this out.
Okay.
There actually was a tweet where they showed like a picture of an alarm clock. So Pixies actually addressed it. And they said, sorry about that. And then AndroidPolice.com says, you can blame the Pixie song for assistant canceling your alarm. They're really harsh on the Pixies over there at Google, man.
Yeah.
Oh well.
How are you going to blame retroactively blame the Pixies for a song they made many years ago? What, 30 years ago? And just because you changed command information on your machine, that's so stupid.
Yeah, that's really dumb. Like they're just like, oh yeah, it's the Pixies' fault. The Pixies, those alarm cancelers. Because there's no other reasons that you can dislike the Pixies. It has to be because of your alarm, and that's it.
Well, yeah, it does. The Pixies always look like they missed their alarm, though.
That's true. They're
pretty disheveled. I think they're the least stylish band of all time.
They never dress up, do they? Have you ever seen the documentary about the Pixies where they were like reuniting?
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. Yeah. Boy, Frank Black sure seems like just a somber little fella, doesn't he? Like,
yeah, he's kind of joyless.
And the way he talks, he's just like, well, we just don't communicate with each other. That's just the type of people we are.
Yeah.
Like that's just how he is. Anyway, so yeah, we got 3 records today, 2 national and 1 local. And where was I going with that though, Eric?
I don't know.
Do you remember?
I don't know. No. Where is your mind, bro?
I'm not gonna stop.
Hey, my alarm just fucking went off.
Oh my God. I always did like that intro though. Ooh, stop.
Yeah. And then it has like a little tape squib.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great song. It really is.
It is. It is a fantastic
it's
song.
Overplayed and overused, but
it's also
really change the song. It's great.
It's also, yeah, no, absolutely. It's also no wonder that it kind of by default became sort of their biggest hit.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, even though it was on like Surfer Rosa, which is like their, it's their first official full-length record produced by Steve Albini, it really is probably the catchiest song in their career.
Well,
Here Comes Your Man,
I get it.
kind of. Where Is My Mind, definitely, like, if it would have been on a later record, maybe with the production of, like, say, I don't know, Trompe Le Monde or something. Not to say, I mean, I love Steve Albini's production, but I bet it would have been like a bigger hit, like instantly. You know what I mean? Because basically it was the movie Fight Club, I believe, that made that song popular.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough one, I think, because sometimes people feeling cool and thinking they have discovered something that no one else has or whatever, that kind of adds to popularity too. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true.
I think when people heard it on Fight Club, if it was new to them, they were like, wow, cool song. But for the rest of it, it was like, oh shit, they're using a really actually cool song,
Yeah.
And so it kind of, I don't know, that elitism, it'll make things popular.
Sure, cool. It will. And there are some people, I heard an interesting take on elitism, that elitism is quality control.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think that's why this show is so elitist. We're just like, all the time.
We're like, controlling the quality.
It's like, don't listen to this. It is terrible. And it really drags music down in its entirety.
I mean, but have we ever said that, though? Have we ever said, like...
I don't think we've even ever said, I don't like this.
No, we never have. We're always like, yeah, it's not really my thing. But
right, that's as bad as it gets.
That's as bad as it gets.
I can see why other people like it.
But you know what? That's what we do, damn it. That's us.
That's what we do, damn it.
Yes. You can't stop us. So, about these records.
Come on, everybody. It's record time.
Okay. So, my pick for this week was the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Cool It Down. Now, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, they don't really need that much of an introduction, I don't think. I think most people who listen to this probably know exactly who they are, but just in case, Karen O on vocals, Nick Zinner on guitars, and Brian Chase on drums from New York City. They made like a big splash in the early 2000s with an EP and a record. Now, a lot of people don't actually know this about me, and I'm not sure if I ever told you this, Eric, but the Yeah Yeah Yeahs' Fever to Tell was a huge influence on me personally. For some reason, I just saw them as this really cool sort of aggressive, like, but not really aggressive, like just sort of a heavy, fun sort of party band type thing. That's sort of the way that I feel they presented themselves on the album Fever to Tell. So I really love that album. And so I really, Yeah Yeah Yeahs mean a lot to me, just on that record alone, and the first EP as well. Since then, they've released a few records that I feel were attempts in maybe going in some different directions, which I definitely admire the shifts of. However, none of them really just hit me in the same way. There was It's Blitz, which really sort of, they started going in more of an electronic direction. And honestly, I can't think of the other ones. I think Show Your Bones was the record that followed up Fever to Tell, which I feel that one kind of, they went in more of a conventional rock direction. But nonetheless, this record is called Cool It Down, and it came out in 2022. And I feel like the attempts of maybe what they were trying to do with some of those earlier records have been fully realized here. I feel like this is a really, really excellent attempt at maybe what they were trying to do, or not even an attempt. I feel like that whatever they were going for on those other records has just been captured, I guess, properly on this record. The album starts off with a collaboration with Perfume Genius called Spitting Off the Edge of the World, or Sitting on the Edge of the World, excuse me. And the album is extremely new wave influenced right off the bat. It's I just think it's freaking awesome. There's a lot of heavy synths going on. All throughout, I would say that the album is it's got kind of a, I don't want to say depressing, but, you know, maybe just sort of a little monotone feel to it a little bit. Like, I feel like there's a lot of emotion being expressed through a lot of these songs. I also found out that the fourth track, called Fleas, it has kind of this like sort of like breakdown that reminded me of something, or this sample that was kind of, it sounded familiar and I couldn't quite figure it out. Then I realized that it's actually contains elements from ESG, the band that we reviewed a while back, and the song is called Moody, that they're taking some stuff from, samples from and whatnot. But I just feel overall, Karen O's vocal work on this is just really stellar. And I think the songs are really good. The title of it, Cool It Down, I found out also is inspired by the Velvet Underground. The Velvet Underground song, I guess, by the same title. I would say the one thing about it is, if you're expecting pretty much any of the sounds from the earlier yeahs, like Fever to Tell, I mean, that sort of sound is pretty much gone here. I mean, this is really something that's completely different than any of that stuff. But I also feel that it's building upon the direction that they have been kind of going in for a couple, 3 records now. I just feel like this is really a well done piece of, I don't know, electro indie pop. I wouldn't say that it's retro, but it definitely has homages to retro sounds. Like I was mentioning, there's some different synth sounds going on, and I'm assuming that some of those are probably a mixture of analog and digital. So my favorite tracks, Spinning on the Edge of the World, Off the Edge of the World. Am I even getting that title right?
Spitting Off the Edge of the World.
Is it Spitting Off the Edge of the World?
Yep.
But I also think there's some interesting spoken word stuff on this record from Karen as well, where I feel like a lot of that is just maybe addressing a lot of problems that are going on in our society and going on in the world. Like, I think Spitting Off the Edge of the World kind of just sounds like it's sort of addressing like a world that has kind of gone mad. I think I read somewhere it might have something to do with climate change as well. Love Bomb, Mars is a really interesting track. That's the last one. And then Fleas, that's the one with the sample of ESG. And then Mars is, it's got again, it's a really short track that ends the record, but it's kind of like, it sounds like maybe Karen O is reading like a poem she wrote or something. And it's just a really interesting sort of take on this type of music altogether. Some things that it reminded me of, right off the bat, I would say like New Order. I would say Always, Boy Harsher. And I would also say ESG and Perfume Genius, X-Ray Specs, Latigra. But also I think that there's quite a bit of a sort of a just general pop influence as well. Like, I could imagine like Bananarama, or even like Madonna or something like that, like early Madonna, sort of being listened to by the same type of fans here. But yeah, overall, I really like the direction that this record went into, and yeah, I thought it was interesting. What did you think, Erik?
Yeah, I thought it was good too. So I haven't heard a single note from the Yeahs since Fever to Tell. So this is pretty different. I mean, it's really different, actually. But yeah, it's like you said, I wasn't really expecting the level of danciness and I don't even want to say electronicness to it. I mean, really like danciness. This is really like techno-y. So, like I said, maybe they've been on that path for a while, but I just wouldn't know. So it seemed kind of surprising. But yeah, the songs are really cool, and I like Carano's voice on everything. I like the subject matters, the lyrics, how it all works vocally. I think it's awesome. But I don't know if I actually hear the other members of the band as far as guitar and drums go. Like there's one guitar solo on a particularly sort of 70s kind of funk track that sounds almost just like the guitar solo on Who's That Lady, which is an amazing guitar tone and solo. Also mirrored in Bombs Over Baghdad a little bit, kind of that same sound. But other than that, like I don't hear a lot of guitar and drums happening, and that sort of noisy, layered, atmospheric stuff that I thought the Yeahs did, like Dan said, is pretty much completely gone at this point. So this was kind of a weird listen for me because it was like I thought I knew, and then I had no idea, what these guys sounded like or what they were about. That doesn't mean I didn't like it, just that yeah, I didn't know. I guess I didn't know what to expect, and so. But yeah, it is really good. It's just really super different. I loved, obviously, the Perfume Genius track. And I felt that track even sounded kind of like a Perfume Genius song. And I think there was a little bit of influence throughout the rest of it, too, which is really cool. But yeah, it's really super influenced by early kind of electronic pop, I think. Yeah, like Madonna and stuff like that, but also a lot of disco. Like I think there was a lot of, especially like late era disco. The thing about it is this brought up sort of I don't think it's a moral dilemma, but it's more of a intellectual dilemma. So if this were a band that I've never heard before, like they weren't the Yeahs, it was just some new band, like I don't know if I would if I would approach it in the same way. Like I would probably just be like, oh, it's cool. It sounds like, electronic pop, like retro kind of stuff, but also with really intelligent lyrics and really great performances and things like that. So sometimes I think, your expectations regarding something influence how you hear it. And in its own way, that's not really very fair, So, but in the other way, you can't really unhear it or not have those expectations. So whatever. I think that if you like the Yeahs and you like, really dancey kind of electronic techno-y disco stuff, like this is phenomenal. So you should totally check it out. It reminded me, like I said, of Madonna and Blondie and Berlin and things like that. But there's also a darker, more sparse side to all this as well. So that kind of reminded me of things like Twin Shadow or the Chromatics or whatever. So, I think that vibe is there and probably a holdover from earlier Yeahs. And so this is more just like, I guess, an updated version. But like I said, I have no basis for understanding the transition. So, but I thought it was really cool, and it really does make me want to go back and kind of hear how we ended up here. I mean, I understand it's 20 years later, so it's not like sudden, but I'd like to hear that transition. So
yeah,
it was a cool record. And I think I'll give it another chance, but more than likely I'll go back and try to figure out how they ended up here. So
yeah,
pretty cool stuff.
The one record that I missed when I kind of talked about their discography. So there was Show Your Bones, which followed up Fever to Tell, which is more of a rock record. Mm-hmm. And then It's Blitz and then Mosquito are the two that followed that record. And those were definitely kind of going in more of a direction like this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where you'll start to hear like the transition sort of thing. So yeah, I think it would be well, and I know that Mosquito has a track with Dr. Octagon on it too.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Which I thought was that's really fun.
Yeah. Cool. So my selection for this week is by a group called Fuck Money. This is just a self-titled EP, came out last year. Fuck Money is from Austin, Texas. So it's Taslin Trebuchet on vocals, Alton Jenkins on drums, Bill Kenny on guitar, and Jeremy Humphreys on bass guitar. And the reason I mention that, all the players and their instruments, is because it doesn't sound very much like a traditional band when you listen to it. But when you see the lineup, it's like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. But then when you hear it, it seems, I don't know the right word, it seems unlikely that you would get the sounds we hear out of that setup. So anyway, I'll just jump right into it. So Fuck Money, it's like really noisy, really distorted, epic, industrial flavored kind of punk anthems. Yeah, I'll expound on that a little because I know that doesn't make a lot of sense. But yeah, it's super noisy, like I said, distorted across the board on all levels, and not just distorted like a distortion pedal on a guitar. I mean, the vocals are blown out, everything's in the red, and it has that feel to it, like a kind of a hardcore feel to it. But under that, there's a layer of music that's happening that's really kind of delicate and upbeat and uplifting in its own way. And that kind of dichotomy, it really makes this work for me. I listened to this on a couple different systems. I will say, if you just play this on your iPhone and listen to it on the speakers there, it's almost harsh noise. And I know that sounds dismissive, but it's not. It's just more like when you listen to a system that has some bass and some mids to it and things like that, you start to hear this really cool layer underneath of it. Yeah, it's driving and intense. The drums and bass are wild, but super solid, which is hard to describe, but it's always in the pocket and they're always exactly where they're supposed to be, but they are just going for it. And the bass drives a lot of it. But yeah, then there's this, like I said, an element of like what seems to be synths and electronic sound, but that must be more like guitar noise control kind of things like that. But this layer kind of just floats over everything, and it adds a lot of space to the other elements, which are very much in your face, but it allows the songs to sort of blossom and constrict at will according to like the mood of the moment. It's really cool and really layered. But yeah, the vocals have a wild, aggressive, sort of bluesy yet industrial element to it. Kind of hard to describe. What I came up with was think Lux Interior from the Cramps with Al Jorgensen from Ministry vocal production. Like, I don't know how else to say that. But yeah, it has a really cool feel to all of it. The vocals come off as, somewhat aggressive because of that distortion, but also Taslin is singing and has a great voice, and it all just works, and it all comes off as just like something new and something really cool. Things it reminded me of a little bit, obviously not all the way because there's so much going on. Like I said, Ministry a little bit, Viagra Boys vocally, maybe a little bit. Soul Glow, The Locust, as far as like that underlying layer of electronic noise and weird movements and things like that, kind of reminded me of TV on the radio in a weird way. Maybe something a little more aggressive like Street Sex. But yeah, stuff in that vein. But this really was something that I haven't heard much like this before. So what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I thought that this was a very interesting take on like noise rock. I don't know if you caught this or not, Eric, but this band features ex-members of Future Death.
Oh, okay. So that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was going to point that out. So yeah, this when I was kind of looking into this band after you recommended this, Eric, I found out two of the members were in Future Death, which I guess that means Future Death is sadly no longer a group. But if they're going in this direction, I'm all for it, man. This is just the most interesting take on noise rock that I can think of. But it's very chaotic and intense, noisy vocals. I think I'm not too familiar with the Cramps, but I can definitely see when you're talking about Al Jorgensen, I can definitely see that 100%. But there's these crazy guitar riffs that the only way that I can really describe it is it whirls throughout like the whole thing, if that makes any sense. But then the rhythm section is just so tight and so like the drumming is super technical, man. Like the drumming was probably my favorite part of this band. I mean, it was just so good. It sounds very spacey. And so I kind of heard, like you were saying, Eric, I heard what I thought was synthesizers, but then I started thinking about it. And I also looked at some of the, I looked at their bio and it doesn't mention anything about using synthesizers. So the only thing I can think of is that they're using effects to kind of gain that sort of sound. Sometimes the vocals sound very sort of buried and condensed, but it creates this like sort of haunting effect, which that totally makes sense with the whole Future Death connection, because that's exactly how I feel Future Death kind of sounded at times. So it kind of almost creates like this sort of shoegazy like noise rock thing, or this undercurrent of like something that isn't as intense, like if that makes sense. That's kind of what I feel you were sort of describing too, Eric, is that while it was really heavy and intense, there was a whole other element to it that, you know, was kind of just calming in a weird sort of way. So I heard, you know, some delays and reverbs on the guitar, or at least I think it is. I genuinely could not figure out exactly what I was hearing at times when it comes to like the guitar. The effects were just so on point, but the drumming in particular on the song Apollo, that's the song, I think that's track 3. That's the song that made me realize that I really just love the drumming, because the way that it's presented structure wise is almost like jazz. Like, I mean, it's really just like, it sounds like, you know, you're listening to like, you know, like a Miles Davis, like bop record or something, being filtered through like this, you know, this noisy thing. It's really incredible stuff. But Apollo, that hands down was the one track that really blew me away. But Chirp and Fuck Me Up, I mean, the whole thing, it's 6 songs and it's very intense, very in your face, very, very quick, but there's just a lot going on that they accomplish in those 6 songs. So like the stuff that this reminded me of, Future Death for one, like I totally hear that, but also the sort of dissonance of like the Armed a little bit. As far as the rhythm section goes, I heard Jesus Lizard and Fugazi, like but then there's like this like weirdly melodic side that I would say, if you're a fan of like Dinosaur Jr. or Husker Du or No Age or something like that, I could see how you could appreciate that musically as well. There's sort of like this spontaneous sounding, like these bursts sometimes that kind of reminds me of the group The Black Eyes. Yeah, just really, really great stuff. I think if you're a fan of, well, if you listen to Future Death and you're a fan of that, I think that this is kind of just like a logical continuation of like that sort of sound. It's just really, really, really great stuff. So moving from one intense group to another intense group, our local pick for this week was this group called Basketball Divorce Court, and the name of the record is Rebound. Basketball Divorce Court is a band from Iowa City, which is Katie Kelly on vocals, Alina B on guitar, Adrian H on bass, and Derek, I think, Bolser on drums. And this thing is very intense. I mean, very fucking intense. Like, but it's also, I feel there's a very vulnerable side to it as well. Like, I feel like it's also just really, pretty at times as well. The lyrics are very on point and emotional. It addresses issues of power and control and depression, trauma, politics, love, hate. I mean, I think it's all coming from a very real place. Musically, it has a lot of elements to it. It goes from like what I kind of feel is sort of DC inspired hardcore. So, talking about like Fugazi, and sometimes it reminds me of something along the lines of like At the Drive-In, to sort of like angular noise rock. And then sometimes like sort of, for lack of a better way to describe it, jangly sort of, I don't want to say emo, but I guess I will, like earlier emo type stuff. It's raw as fuck, in your face, not a lot of bells and whistles. So yeah, it's just a really, really great punk record. And I feel like this band is going places, and it's pretty exciting to me. I guess they've been around for a while, but this is the first I've heard of them. I mean, I honestly, I can't say much more about it. I love it a lot. There's, so many good songs on here, but like the first track is called Fuck Capitalism. So, I mean, you can pretty much figure out where it's going to go from there. But yeah, it gets really dark and really just like, sometimes I just feel like Katie is just spilling her heart out. Like it, yeah. So it has that sort of like honesty to it, or this vulnerability and sort of anger that really does put me in mind of like, again, like some of the earlier emo bands like Moss Icon or like Rites of Spring or Embrace, stuff like that. I also think that Katie's voice is very reminiscent of Celine Visual of 7 Year Bitch, Babes in Toyland. There's a element of it that reminds me of Naked Raygun. Yeah, it's just really, really emotional, really driven, and I feel like really passionate. Gosh, and there's some great song titles like Oops, We Don't Use That Word on Barbie.com. Astrology app, where that seriously is one of the most intense things I've ever heard. Astrology app. I was almost in tears, like just listening to it. I was just like, wow, very powerful stuff. And I'm excited that this is coming out of like our backyard here, Erica. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I loved it. Man, you're right. It was intense. Just unstoppable attitude. Just oozing attitude, But yeah, super intense, but also really accessible in its own way. Like, I think the music it's very mathy, it's angular, all that stuff, but it's very much on the punk side of post-punk. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
post-punk can encompass a lot of different things. And I think this falls really on the punk side of it. The guitars and bass, they just swirl and interact and start and stop. They hold, like, it's really worked out. It's really mathy, but not in a way that's so technical it's not enjoyable. It's just super aware of what's happening. And the drums are super tight, super rigid, and they have to be, basically, to support that level of sparseness and timing. It's pretty much imperative. That's not to say this doesn't move or have feeling, because it definitely does. It just is super tight. But yeah, like you were saying, the vocals, they take this into another place. Everything is elevated. Everything has to step up to meet these vocals, and they do. The vocals are, like Dan said, really intense, really angry, but I also feel that there's this other element to it, which I think we all feel it, and I think that's why it's really relatable. There's a frustration in the singing, and there's a frustration to the point of almost needing to be apathetic, like out of self-preservation. That feeling, like you just are so mad and you're just so frustrated with everything that you just have to take a step back and almost just be like down on it, just kind of like, fuck this, and then that real visceral anger sort of bubbles back up. In this case, it's the screaming, and the screaming serves to remind you that these ideas are dire and they're immediate and they're important. And so, yeah, the vocals, they switch between this sort of almost like, what is going on, this confusion and anger and frustration, to this like release. And I think it's great. Yeah, my favorite track was probably Jack Nicholson, Tattoo. I thought it was really cool. The Astrology app one, like you said, it's reminiscent of other things that go that deep and go that far into what someone's feeling. I don't have a lot of examples that I think work, unfortunately, like the Lingua Ignota, sometimes maybe something from that. Or this is going to sound so dumb, but like the end of like the first Korn record, I don't remember what track that is.
Oh yeah, Daddy.
Like it's almost to that level of like hearing someone going through that experience and just, almost breaking down. So it is intense, but I'm not going to say that it's a bummer. I'm not going to say that you'll walk away from this depressed. It's also super empowering, Mm-hmm. And yeah, like I said, just unstoppable attitude, really cool stuff. I loved it. Musically, yeah, it did remind me of things maybe closer to like, I don't even know what style of music this is, but like a Minor Forest is a group I used to be into, or like June of 44, like that kind of stuff. Like that sort of angularness. Vocally, it reminded me kind of I never know how to say her name, Haneen Elias from Atari Teenage Riot.
Oh yeah.
As far as the screaming part of it. But this is going to sound weird. It reminded me a lot of Ian MacKay's vocals, mm-hmm. but not necessarily Fugazi as much as Minor Threat. Mm-hmm. And the reason is, in Minor Threat, the vocals have almost this on-off element to them. And I think Basketball Divorce Court also has that element. It kind of goes from this singing or almost talk singing at times to the screaming. And it goes back and forth. And there's a rise into the screaming, but for the most part, it is these two feelings. And in the same way that worked for Minor Threat to agitate the listener, this does too. But yeah, I was stoked on this, and I'm excited to hear more from them and finally get out and see them sometime too. Yeah, I don't know why I slept on this, but it's really phenomenal. So
yeah, and one thing that I just now thought of, just now after hearing you talk about your take on it, I now realize, and I haven't even seen them live, but I now realize that I haven't had the same type of, I guess, emotional reaction to a band like this from this area since I first saw Matt Davis in the band Brazil.
Yeah.
Because I felt all those same things that I would describe, that I described Basketball Divorce Court's music and how it made me feel. Like you said, empowering, but it also might make you feel sad and angry because there's just all these emotions being thrown at once, I feel. And all of these justified, well, like you were saying, these justified experiences, or whatever it is that Katie is writing about. I felt that exact same way, seeing Matt Davis live for the first time. And so this is very much, and it's also interesting you mentioned Ian MacKay's vocals and not with Fugazi, because have you ever listened to Embrace before?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Embrace is even more of that sort of almost like speaking, singing sort of stuff. Because like Embrace really, and Rites of Spring, which was Guy Picciotto's band, or Guy Picciotto, or I don't even know how to pronounce my heroes' names anymore. But that was sort of why those bands are considered like the founders of emo, if you will, because they were playing like these really stripped down versions of like punk rock in like 1985 or something, and it was just a lot of that kind of stuff. So that's what ultimately this reminded me of, was just that sort of emotion. Matt Davis was also kind of, like invoking that, I feel, as well, when he was in both 10 Grand. So yeah, this is exciting stuff for this area. So
nice.
And I guess they're getting out there too. I think I just saw on Instagram that Basketball Divorce Court is either going on tour or just got back from tour. So
cool. Nice.
That's really cool stuff. Yeah, man, it's just, I'm getting more and more excited about discovering music from around this area, Erik.
Yeah, people are stepping up.
They really are.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know how to say this in a nice way, so I'll just not try. So coming up, like, there was this element to local music, like it almost had this connotation to it of it was gonna be lacking in some way. It was gonna be not comparable to things that had national releases or were on bigger labels or whatever. I think that connotation is gone, at least in our area. Yeah. Like, this is, everything we've been listening to is just like as good as anything else I've ever heard. And it almost even makes me feel bad sometimes being like, and here's our local review. Like, it's like, we want to support local artists, but even just saying like, this is our local review almost puts it in a different box. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it kind of does, right? And
it works, and that's great because that's what we do. But at the same time, it's like, when we say that, don't automatically think, oh, this sounds low budget, or this isn't very good or well done or whatever. Like, because this stuff is amazing, and it's really fun to find out about the new stuff. And I don't know if we can help anyone else find new local stuff to check out, then that's awesome. So
I also think that in this day and age, Erik, when you say local band, it doesn't have those same type of connotations anymore, because people are starting to realize that anything that a label was able to provide for you in the 90s or even like the mid 2000s, whether it be a producer, a record deal, the ability to put out records, the ability to make art, the visual side of things. Anything that you were told you had to get a record deal to do is now not easier, but it's more available to be able to do those things now more than ever. So I think that, you know, in some ways, I think people are kind of in this, we're in sort of this phase of music where I think that there's not too much differentiation between local music and national music, because even like the bigger bands are starting to record with the same software that local bands are able to record with.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, I feel like being called a local band, I don't know. And feel free to comment on this, anybody who wants to, respond or whatever, but I kind of feel it's almost like, for lack of a better way to describe it, like it's almost like a sense of pride to be labeled like a local act nowadays, because it's like that means you're supporting your local scene. That means you're actually like, being active. And I feel like most people are not embarrassed to be a local band anymore, because they know that like Iowa City, everyone is just fucking stepping up. Davenport, everyone is just killing it right now. Like in the, you know what I mean? Pretty much almost everything that I listen to in this area is good. You know what I mean? Like it's great. And so I don't know. I think, and especially now with like, Bandcamp and the music industry, the way it is anyway, like, I mean, who needs a record deal anymore? Yeah. I just feel like that's sort of like where you find the best stuff anymore, For
sure. And obviously it's totally subjective, because where you live determines what is local.
Oh no, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of fun. Like, I think that's fun.
Yes. And that's the beauty of it, is that somebody who lives in North Dakota, or somebody who lives in Seattle, or somebody who lives in New York or whatever can say the exact same thing about that we're saying about Iowa. And but then we can also cross paths, because it happens all the time. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like, a band touring will play like, a band from Iowa City touring will play like Chicago or something. And it's like, okay, there's 4 bands that they played with in Chicago that really like them. So it's like, okay, well, these Chicago bands will make it to Iowa City sometime, and
you
become familiar with those scenes. I mean, that's how it's always worked. But I feel like there's just, the connections are like, I don't know. It feels like we're in a golden age of like DIY connections, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like that to me. It's so, I think, and I don't think most people who play at least the kind of music that we generally listen to, that our friends make or whatever, are not really approaching music with the idea of like, oh, we're going to sound like Coldplay or something, you know what I mean? Or we're going to, you know what I mean? Like it's, the whole record deal thing is just, I don't know. It kind of seems to be a thing of the past nowadays.
For sure. Yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah. No kidding. I like the fact that we're living in like Ian MacKay's dream world right now with Bandcamp, because in a way it kind of is. For sure. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't think he ever set out to destroy anything, and I don't think he destroyed anything. I'm just saying, like, guys like Ian MacKay and indie record labels, they just wanted an alternative, and I don't think, let me just put it to you this way, like Discord Records, SST, Sub Pop, all of those labels, and all the other ones, all the big, hardcore labels that you can think of, the DIY labels from like the 80s, they walked so that Bandcamp could run.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
So
yeah,
pretty cool stuff. And that is my rant for the day, kids. Oh, time to follow Grandpa Dan's advice and not make any money with your music.
Yeah, money's for suckers. That's what I always say.
It is. And you know what? I mean, we don't need that cash, because it would rule everything around you.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Crewy.
Crewy.
I can't do it. Cree. Isn't that the song by the Wu-Tang Clan?
Yeah, Creed. I thought you were gonna say Creed.
Creed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Creed.
Yeah, Creed is why record labels died, actually.
It
wasn't the good done by the DIY community. It was the bad done by the major labels.
You know Scott Stapp?
Not personally.
Oh, you don't know him? He's a pretty good guy. Yeah, I guess Scott Stapp. I could be wrong about this, so this might be disinformation. But my understanding is that Scott Stapp supposedly said, the singer of Creed, that he didn't even like his own band's music. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. And in fact, it probably isn't true. That's just what I heard. So I want to put that out there for all you Creed fans listening.
Oh, wow. Well, no one likes him.
I remember
maybe that's what you're thinking of.
I remember when I first heard that song, that big hit of theirs on the radio, going to school one morning. And I was just like, wow, Pearl Jam got a little heavier and a lot worse.
Yeah, I think they call that post-grunge, right?
Post-grunge.
Yeah.
Post-grunge, like the cereal, Post.
Yeah, post-grunge flakes.
Yeah, post-grunge flakes. Well, so today we learned a lot, didn't we?
Not really.
I don't know. It seemed like a pretty educational show to me. We learned "Where Is My Mind" is not a song you want to use as your alarm clock. What is it, ringer? You don't want to use that anymore.
Yeah.
If you were using it in the first place. I don't know. I would have picked a different Pixie song myself.
So to like wake up to?
Yeah, like, I don't know, Something Against You or something. Or rock music or... Oh, no. You know what I really would have used? I really would have used that Hey.
Yeah,
hey.
That's what I was thinking of, actually.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Hey!
Yep. So we determined the best Pixies wake-up song.
The best Pixies wake-up song. And then we talked about some cool records.
Yeah.
And then you heard Grandpa Dan's rant about DIY music. Oh.
And then we ended up here, where we are right now.
And now we're here. And if you want to respond to that rant, please contact us on Instagram.
Yeah.
Or, if you just want to respond to anything that we've done,
you can just talk to whatever you're listening to us on. We won't hear you.
Yeah, you can just...
Feel free to just say whatever you want to us.
Old man yells at computer.
Okay. Yeah.
That's basically me every time. Old man yells at computer.
Yeah.
But
computers are the worst.
Computers are the worst, man.
Can't wait till it all just collapses. I wake up every day going, damn it, this internet's still here. Seriously. Just think about how great it's going to be. I don't want the chaos and the destruction and all the death and everything. Like, that part will suck, but, just not having to look at my phone all the time, that'd be pretty cool.
I just want them to bring back the information superhighway.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was a cool road to drive down.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I used to go surfing on the web. That was nice.
Yeah.
Now it's just doom scrolling.
Yeah. Doom
totally
scrolling.
different.
Yeah. Let's surf the web. Doom surfing. Oh man, let's surf the web and go derms. All right, I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen. It's over.
It's over.
It's over. Well, thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Wow.
And this is real life too, nonetheless.